Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 11. This is the final lecture that I will provide you, and weeks 12, 13, and 14 have been designated for your strategic plan presentations, and you already know which weeks you are assigned. And of course, our final week, week 15, will be your final exam. So I want to spend some time during today's lecture. Actually, today's lecture is really going to be about reviewing what we've been learning over the past 11 weeks. So it's exciting, and I hope that this has been a pleasant experience for you. Okay, so our learning objectives for today, or this week, excuse me, include describing the important role of harnessing technology in health services planning. As you know, technology is always changing. There's always new developments and new ways for us to do business, and it's important for us to stay ahead of the curve in that area. And so we'll look at some of the challenges and opportunities that are associated with that, as well as good and advanced technology in the wake of health reform efforts. And as I said earlier, I'm going to spend a lot of time reviewing what we've been covering throughout the past 11 weeks or 10 weeks. So the assignments for the week include obviously the lecture, the harnessing technology. There's actually an assignment that's due by the end of the week. It's due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. And you just follow. If you click on the link here, you just follow the discussion. Follow the. I can do it while we're here together. Okay, so the article is Larson. I think it was produced or published in Healthcare Executive Magazine, and all you need to do is read the instructions here and then submit a 200 to 500 in 250 to 500 words your response. So anyway, you can read this on your own time. I don't want to spend time going over that, but that is an assignment that is due at the end of the week. And there's another assignment that's due at the end of the week. It is on SWOT analysis. Again, this is a review material for you, and my goal is to be sure that you are prepared for your final exam experience. That's the purpose. I mean, we're going to talk about technology this week, but the goal of this lecture and the purpose of my final lecture is to provide you with an overview and some guidelines around how you should be studying for your final. And the independent assignment, obviously, is your strategic plan, and you should be working on that. Okay, so let's go to our review here. All right, it's time for review. We've covered a lot. I've just outlined for you some key areas, and I just want to review some content so that you're prepared. So key planning principles. Just remember that when I started this course the first week, I talked about planning principles and how it doesn't matter where you go, there's some standard principles that should apply for anyone who's doing a strategic plan in any type of organization. What are those? Well, conducting an internal assessment. And you should be able to identify routine considerations for internal assessments. What are some examples of what you might be looking at when you're conducting an internal assessment? What about the external assessment? You should be able to identify routine considerations for external assessments. I am not going to go over this. I'm giving you guidelines so that you can go back and review and think through some of these conversations that we've had in preparation for the final. What is the SWOT analysis? Remember, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what's the role of the mission, vision, and core values when it comes to planning? And why is this so important? And as I said, please note, a long-term plan is great, but the plan must be flexible enough to accommodate changes in the external environment. And when planners develop strategic plans that are inflexible or unwavering, then all it takes is one big change in the external environment, and the plan is becomes obsolete and ineffective. So we don't want to go in that direction. Key planning principles. Remember, every plan must have an evaluation, right? There must be metrics, benchmarks. You should be able to describe the purpose of the evaluation, the value of benchmarks, and incremental targets. One question I may ask you is, let's say you have a 12-month benchmark that you'd like to apply, but you don't know. You don't have any national standard or local benchmarks to apply it to, or it could be something new that you're doing in your organization. What do you do in that situation? Well, you establish your own. So you take 6 months or a year, and then you make that your baseline timeline. And then your year 2 would be when you develop some objectives based on what you've experienced, what you learned during the baseline assessment. What are goals? What are objectives? Be sure that if I give you an example, you can tell me, oh, this is a goal statement. This is an objective statement. Be sure that you can provide examples of tools that can be used for evaluation, and how can you not only provide the tools, but fill in the fields appropriately. So the balanced scorecard. What is a balanced scorecard? Why is it called a balanced scorecard? And what are the key areas that we see across the industry when it comes to the balanced scorecard? Logic model, the expectation is that you know the framework of a logic model: inputs, outputs, resources, indicators, what's your long-term vision. So from left to right, be sure that you are familiar with the framework of the logic model, recognizing that it's a visual display of how you're going to move the needle. And we didn't talk too much about a work plan, but you've read about it, and you've seen it in some of the documents that I've provided you. And I'm going to provide a work plan as the last slide of this lecture, just to rehash that for you. But a work plan is important. And then the financial planning piece. What is a pro forma analysis, and what are the key ingredients that we must take into consideration when we're developing the pro forma? And fundraising for material expenses to support the plan must be integrated in a financial plan. And so if you have a strategic plan, there must be an accompanying financial document that shows how you're going to fund some of the projects that may be in the plan. And competitive intelligence, what is it? And remember, we talked about it being ethical and legal, right? And if I give you some examples of unethical ways of, capturing information about a competitor, I'll give you examples, and you'll need to be able to tell me if that's acceptable or not. Market research. What is it? What are different types of market research? Different types of data collection. Quantitative data, remember, it always gives you the what, but qualitative can help give you the why. You have to have mixed methods in order to really tell the true story of what's happening. And then the scenario planning. What is it, and why does it make so much sense? Sorry, my dog is like over there doing some stuff. Shh, quiet. All right, roles and responsibilities. When it comes to the planning, it's important that you know what is the role of the board of directors, what's the role of the senior leadership team or C-suite, the C-suite team, what's the role of management, the frontline staff. Remember, we've talked about cascading. Let's say that the CEO has, as part of his or her performance plan, is to improve customer service. To make that very simple, that's a core. That's a key area that that he wants to improve over a 12-month period for his organization. And so that has to cascade all the way down to the frontline staff. And so it's important to have processes and systems in place to make sure that everybody is part of that process. Because if you're missing people or different levels or layers of the organization, you're not going to move the needle. What's the role of the facilitator? We've had quite a few conversations on the facilitator and the important role of the facilitator, recognizing this is a person who is impartial and creates an environment in which everyone feels comfortable, it's a safe space, everyone is heard, and it's not the responsibility of the facilitator to make the decisions. It's the responsibility of the facilitator to help the team find its way. It's the responsibility of the facilitator to ask strategic questions to make sure that all I's are dotted and T's crossed and we're considering all types of options, opportunities, outcomes, and so forth. And so that's a skill set. And I mean, it's not something that you just want someone on your board to do. Having that external person is really, really important. And some organizations, a lot of times the facilitator is outsourced, and that's the norm. Some organizations don't have the capacity or they can't pay for external facilitators. There are organizations, not-for-profit organizations, that do this type of work, and they can provide these services at very, very low cost for other not-for-profit organizations. And so these organizations, these not-for-profit organizations, are their mission is around improving the capacity of other not-for-profit organizations. And this is one of the common requests that they receive. It's time for us to do some strategic planning. We don't have funding. Do you have resources to support our work? There's a great organization in the DC area called Mosaica, Mosaica. That's their mission. All right, future directions. Describe the relevance of integrating the public health sector with the healthcare sector, the social determinants of health. How can the healthcare sector rethink its approach to patient care within this context? I've given you many examples of how that can be done, and I remember saying that there's so much that we just don't know. There's so much we just don't know, and there's so much we can do much better. Other terms: accountable care organizations, patient-centered medical homes, electronic medical records, clinical integration, the patient experience. It's important for you to be able to define those terms. And as planners, what's the relationship between planning and all of these really, really important concepts that we are in the midst of in the field right now? Also, history of planning. I believe that was chapter 1 in the text. What is a certificate of need? Why do they exist? What are the key considerations? Who's responsible for certificate of need processes? The Delphi technique, which there's a video clip. If you don't recall that, review the video clip and you'll do well with that. And then what are some of the trends in new facility construction? And that came from the advisory board document. Again, I think that was like 75 pages. And my takeaway, or the goal for you, my goal for you in reading that or reviewing that, was to see how new facilities are being designed different today than they've ever been in the past. And how does that relate to the patient experience? So let's look at a work plan. This is an example of a work plan, and some of you have experience writing grants. As when I was reading the questionnaire that you completed during week 1, or week 2 for some of you, because we had issues with getting online. But some of you have had experiences writing grants, and so this is an example of a work plan. And so you have your goal statement up here, and this particular project, the goal statement was to cost effectively improve the oral health of low-income children who receive primary care in a community health center by piloting a model that blah, 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 blah. And then there's the outcome statement, right? What do we ultimately want to achieve? And so this is the outcome. And so there's two outcomes, I believe, but I've only provided one outcome on the slide. So the outcome of the work plan, how we're going to achieve that is all this is here. So what's the activity? What's the input or the resource that's going to be needed? What's the time frame? This is really important to have a begin date and an end date. And there must always be someone responsible. I can't tell you how many work plans I've looked at and there's no accountable party. Someone needs to be responsible. And just by seeing your name in the box really sends a message. Oh, I got to get on this and I got to make it a priority, right? And then what are the anticipated outputs? And then progress. How are we doing? And so at the bottom here, outcome evaluation plan is another way that you can display this, how you're doing, evaluating performance. And so this is a pretty standard work plan that I would recommend you use. If you're writing a grant, this would be a great format to start with. It makes a lot of sense, and it's pretty straightforward, and it's reviewers they want to see information laid out in a practical, sensible, concise manner, and that's exactly what this framework does for you. So I just wanted to be sure I took some time to talk about that and share that with you. And I think there's a couple of examples in the tools and resources section of our virtual classroom. So that's it for this week. And again, I just want to say congratulations on a successful semester. And it has been a pleasure facilitating this course. There are many, many opportunities for me to improve, but I think that by this being the first time going through this, I think we all did pretty good. And I just want to thank you for your patience. And I am so excited about you and your success in this program and your future. All of you will do very, very well. You're very committed to this work. I've enjoyed listening to you and learning from you. And I look forward to meeting you in the face at some point before graduation. All right. Thanks again, and I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing your presentations. All right, I'll talk to you soon.